excited. I know that I am. Just to start us off here, per usual, I'm going to go ahead and put that sign-in link in the chat. Remember, I'll give it to anyone who misses it within the first 5 minutes. After that, no mas. All right, you guys are doing good. Everyone's clicking the link. I like it. I like it. Keep it going. Keep it going. Nice. More people clicking it. Great. Good. There's another one. All right. Remember, if you have any issues, always let me know. Miles, in the group chat. Right there. All right. Let's see. Do. Good. All right. If everyone has went ahead and clicked their sign-in link and you got that usual green bar, we're going to go ahead and start getting started here. All right. So our first slide deck today is all about a day in the life of a successful student. We already had the sign-in link. We got our nice little green bar. We know what we're doing here. Day 2. So once again, welcome to ATP and thank you for coming here. I think this is an exciting first step in your aviation career. For many of you, this has been like a dream or a goal that you've had for months, years, or even decades in the making. I'm going to tell you right now that this is a fast track program, so it is incredibly challenging. But along with those challenges, it's also incredibly fun and in the end, incredibly rewarding. So it's definitely worth it. I think I told you guys yesterday how I used to be a flight attendant, and I chose to come to ATP after all the pilots I had talked to said, hey, it is a pilot making mill. Just go there. It'll get you in, get you out. That's exactly what happened. They know what they're talking about. And whenever I had a really challenging time here at ATP, I'd always think back to remember that one time as a flight attendant where a guest literally just randomly leaned over and just puked directly on your shoes? Well, I don't want to go back to that. So maybe I'll go into the flight deck where I can just shut the door and be like, deuces, y'all, good luck. So just like that, guys, if you ever have a challenging day here at ATP, look to the future, know where you're going, know what you're working for. Maybe you're trying to escape that 9 to 5, maybe you like to travel, maybe you just want an opportunity to fly some awesome airplanes, maybe you want it for the pay, whatever reason it is, keep that in mind at all times. All right, so if you are making up a missed class, make sure you get that. You can still click on that sign-in link and still hit that sign-out link as well. Aha, Isaiah, thank you so much for saying something because you're within the first 5 minutes, so I can send it again. Bam, in. All right, so if you are only auditing this class, or let's say you're auditing a different class, as in you already took it once, maybe you just want to review. If you're in that boat, don't hit the sign in and sign out link. It might mess with your record. So if you're taking a class for a second time, do not hit the sign in and sign out link. All right, so we have all lived through COVID. So I'm sure at the very least, we've all heard what a Zoom call is before. With this video chat technology and some e-learning that we've all seen before. Now, it is useful to review some expectations and etiquette as e-learning will be integral to your time here at ATP. So we've already gone over that sign in and sign out link. We know that you have to hit both those buttons to get credit for the class. Now, make sure you show up on time. The good rule of thumb is to log into your Zoom about 15 minutes early to allow for any technical difficulties you may encounter. Plus, this attitude of timeliness is really going to carry over to the rest of your program. Make sure that you're in a location that is best suited for learning. Make sure you have your cameras on and facing you and your mic muted. We want to see your smiling faces and verify you're actually present. Make sure you're using an iPad, a laptop, or a PC. Most definitely not an iPhone. Miles, thank you so much for saying something. I knew you were here in the first 5 minutes, so I will sign you in. All right. Ronaldo, do you have an issue with your camera? Or your mic? All right, Mr. Ronaldo, if you can hear me, make sure you send me a direct message so you can get credit for today's class. So, make sure you're in a location that's best suited for learning. Like I was saying before, make sure you're not in an area that's going to have too many distractions. Now, engaging is the best way to learn. If you have a question or a comment, make sure you raise your Zoom hand or send a message in the chat. Worst case scenario, just unmute yourself and say something. Who just put up their hand? Tilak?
That was
That you?
bad. Yeah,
All
it's
right. Cool. Make sure you're prepared to answer questions if called upon. I like to throw pretty much softballs out there. But if there's any time that I throw a question to you, at least show that you were paying attention. Minimally, please. And then lastly, make sure that you are communicating. Make sure you keep me and ATP in the loop. If you have anything that conflicts with these lessons, please let us know. Make sure you're utilizing what we call extreme communication. In other words, everyone should stay informed on what is going on so that there are no questions or misunderstandings about actions or expectations. If you need to turn your camera off to use a restroom, notify us in the chat function. If you lose your internet connection or experience technical difficulties, send an email to the Elevate team so they can try to work with you. Anything you think is worth communicating, do not hesitate it. Just communicate. No one's going to blame you for over communicating. All right, so you can kind of think of these next 2 weeks of lessons as sort of like an introduction to like a college course, like hence ATP 101. In other words, these are just the beginning stages of the building foundation of your aviation knowledge. So some of you already may have some knowledge of the aviation industry. Others of you have absolutely none, and that is absolutely fine. I started with absolutely none. So these lessons are designed to get you ready to dive deeper into the different topics you'll study during your flight training. You may not perfectly retain all the information we're going over in Elevates, but at least next time you see it, it's not going to be the first time you see this information ever. The next time you study this information with your instructor on your own, or you go with another student, it'll kind of help solidify the information in your brain. There's kind of like this one pretty well-known saying in the aviation industry saying that a good pilot never stops learning. That process really starts today and will carry on through the rest of your career. So there is potentially an overwhelming, I'm going to take that away, the word potentially. There is an overwhelming amount to study and learn in the next few months of the program. So where do you begin? Well, the main key is to take it just one day at a time. Although it may seem like it's a lot to take in, you will kind of learn today how to metaphorically eat the elephant, the process that will lead you to successfully completion of your program. When I say by eat the elephant, what I always told my brand new students is, we're going to come at you with so much information, you're not going to be able to catch it all. And that's okay, because that's just how much information is being like spread directly towards you. So your plan of action is to take what you can, when you can, and never stop moving, right? Don't stop and just take what you can, when you can. Part of that is going to be looking at things like your program outline and seeing what's coming up when, so you know what you should start studying when, so you can stay ahead of the 8 ball instead of getting behind the 8 ball. So, like I was saying, you break down the program into manageable days, weeks, or months. Get it all out here. Here we go. So you have that one day at a time mentality. How do we do this? Well, we have that program outline tab to break down the airline career pilot program. As a student, you need to break this down even further into like daily tasks you want to accomplish, or even weekly or monthly. You can also do this by getting ahead on your review dues, or before each one of your lessons, you can go in the flight instructor guides and see what's actually being taught for each lesson. You have the library as a very good resource for you guys. You have those review dues that you can go ahead and knock out. Yeah, come back. And that was it. All right. So each day that you have here at ATP is going to vary. But here's more like a general outline of how much time you should dedicate to each task during the day. Now, please note that not all days are going to be the same. And some days you might spend more time working on one thing than others. For example, the first couple weeks, you'll need to spend more time on written test prep and the GIS videos. That's what you're doing right now. However, as you finish those, you can begin to dedicate more time towards independent study and group study. Also, when you actually start, you are going to spend some days flying more than others. Like, for example, when I would schedule out my students, I was trying to schedule a flight every single day of the week. And of those days, there'd probably be about 2 of those days that because of weather or maintenance and things like that, we ended up being not being able to fly. So with that in mind, you're going to fly most likely at least 4 to 5 times a week. And let's say I drop below that, what I would do is I would double fly my student a different day. It turns out the next day was absolutely beautiful. Hey, there's another plane available later in the day. We're going to fly twice today. So not every one of your days are going to look the same. Now, one thing that's important to recognize on this chart is that 75% of your time is actually spent working on ground knowledge, and only a small portion of your day is actually spent flying or in a sim. However, once again, this can vary. One day you might fly twice, another day you might not fly at all. Now, this chart is designed for the intention of training 7 days a week. If you only fly 5 days during the week, then the flights will be longer and you might have a longer day. Now, you should be utilizing these days that you're going to find yourself off to work on your GIS videos and studying your ground knowledge. If you're not doing this on your days off, then you'll need to spend more time working on these things when you're actually trying to fly at the same time. It is very easy to fall behind in an accelerated program. So on average, if you do not complete your private GIS videos before you even start, that means you should probably be watching at least 3 to 4 videos a day to stay on track. All right, so once again, no day is the same. Tasks and priorities will change throughout the program. So learning to manage time more effectively can help pilots like really avoid heavily like given pressures imposed by getting behind your schedule and not meeting deadlines. So between your first day of training and the practical test, you're going to go through some pretty remarkable changes. So make sure that you be patient, take each day as it is presented to you, and it's important to that you recognize the importance of regular study and practice. Now, if it turns out I'm a Florida boy, so let's say there's a hurricane coming through, right? There is such thing as a snow day. There is mental health days. There's days that you have to be like, all right, I'm not flying today and I don't have a sim. I wouldn't exactly call it a day off, but maybe say I'm going to spend the 3 hours of my morning just studying, then have the rest of the day off for yourself, right? Mental health and taking breaks is still important, but that doesn't mean that you're going to take an entire day off and do nothing. Yeah. So, you have been said that if you've been sent the big brown box, inside that you should have the student and instructor handbook. Now, inside that student instructor handbook, there is a one section called learning, studying, and training events. In there, it talks about a few different topics. Topic number one is talking about self-accountability. Now, there is no one person that is going to track that you are actually doing your studies. If you fail to do the work, you can get behind very quickly and it will be very hard to catch up. We are all adults here. We all expect that you're able to keep up with workload or communicate when you're in trouble. Another thing that we talk about in this section is talking about a positive student. It's a mindset to be successful. It's these students that have a negative mindset, like this sucks, this is horrible, everyone's against me. These are the students that will not succeed in this program. If you have a bad day and things don't work out, life sucks, wear a helmet, right? This is your program, you're paying for it. We're going to push you as hard as we can, and we're going to make sure that you're successful. But you have to keep that positive mindset, that look to that future that we talked about why you're here and what you want to get out of this. If you keep a negative mindset, it's really going to degrade the learning opportunities that you have here at ATP. Now, we also have professional development. And how does that relate here? Well, we're talking about how the further you get in the program, the more that will be expected of you. For example, when you come in on day one, do we expect that you'll be able to pre-flight the plane all by yourself and do your airworthiness checklist and all that? Absolutely not. By the time you get to the CFI level, is it expected by the time it is your flight that you have your weight and balance airworthiness checklist, the aircraft has been completely pre-flighted, and you've gone over the weather without this instructor's prompt? Absolutely. Absolutely. So the longer you're in the program, the more that will be expected of you. You are responsible for the success in the program, and it is dependent on the amount of work you're putting in. If you are struggling, seek assistance. Now, keep in mind that unlike high school or some collegiate courses, the knowledge that you take away from your everyday learning in this program is actual knowledge that you're going to use for the rest of your life and your career as a pilot. This is not like, what's something I randomly remember? The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Am I ever going to use this? Absolutely not. But the information that you're going to learn here at ATP, yes, you will use it every single day. So everything is important. Now I'm going to try to emphasize one thing I said earlier. I said if you're struggling, seek assistance. Now, if you are putting forth your best effort and you're having struggles, ATP wants to help you. They literally want you to succeed. And one of the first things they're going to look at is, all right, how are they studying? Have they completed all their GIS videos? Are they getting up arrows with their instructor? Are they asking for more grounds? What efforts are they putting in? It's one of the first things they're going to look at. And if they see you're doing absolutely everything, they'll be like, oh, this is a student we really want to help. So the more work you put in, the more work the ATP is going to want to put in back into you. So always ask for help, but make sure you're showing that, yes, I am here every day. I'm doing my best. So here at ATP Flight School, you will learn how to be a career pilot. That's why we're here. So learning can be defined, in general, learning can be defined as a change in behavior from experience and practice, both of which you'll be doing on a daily basis throughout your program. Due to the success of the training program here at ATP, we have learned what strategies work best for new students, like yourself. Now, these lessons, along with the positive reinforcement that your instructor will give you, It's going to help you maximize your success in the airline career pilot program. Yes. So, where can we go with all this information? What can you do right now before starting the program to help you prepare and get the right mindset? Well, complete your orientation videos because you need to do those anyways if you want to get the endorsement. And as far as the private GIS videos, are those required right now? No. No, they're not. If you want to work ahead and start setting a schedule, like, hey, I want to start studying every day from this time to this time. One thing you can study is using those private GIS videos. They're a great resource. You can also complete as many written exams as you like. As we all know, before you start, you need to have your PAR complete. If you want to go further than that, that is amazing. So please feel free to do so using that Shepherd Air. Then, make sure you complete all your review dues for the check-in lesson. Make sure you're just working ahead as much as you can, so getting ahead of the 8 ball at all times. Good. So, now, there will be days when you get frustrated. You feel like you plateaued, you get blurry-eyed, all of those things where your mind is just done for a moment. Wow. First off, one of the big things you can do is change the study location, right? Maybe you're studying at a library, maybe go to your training center or go home and study there. Change the method of study. If you're in the middle of doing a whole bunch of flashcards and something isn't really sticking, maybe it's because you need to learn the information behind the flashcard. So maybe look up a video or look up something in the P-hack. Maybe understanding the reason behind it will help you remember it. And then lastly, not lastly, but next, make sure you are taking regular breaks. If you're actually doing the work, then yeah, you deserve a break, 10,000%. So when you take that break, maybe try going outside, get some fresh air, do some bodily functions, get some water, all that stuff. Lastly, your first stop is if you're starting to get that frustrated, talk to your instructor. They have been exactly where you've been at that moment, and they'll be able to give you some tips and tricks and tell you how you can then succeed or get to the next step. So, what are the steps you can start now to build good habits that will carry you through your training? Well, setting that tone early by creating good habits can contribute a positive learning experience at ATP. We want you guys to start as strong as possible. Start strong enough that you can hit the ground running. So, things that you can do now, we already talked about completing extra written knowledge tests or going through the private GIS videos. Just getting yourself as involved as possible, getting through your program outline, and maybe making a schedule for yourself so you know what you want to start studying when. You can also even start booking out like time. Like I had one student, he liked to study at his local library. I don't know, that was his thing. He liked studying at the library. So he actually booked study rooms in there a whole bunch of time in advance. So each time he went to that library, he had an entire room just to himself. So he could like lay down all his books and he was good to go. So anything you can do to make sure that you can start hitting the ground running, highly suggest. Questions? Manuel.
Yeah, so the review due, it's mandatory, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's all.
Cool. Jacob.
Yeah, so obviously there's specific requirements as part of the program, but how much individualization is there in regards to somebody's maybe a little bit quicker on a certain section or a little bit slower? How does that work?
I mean, if I have two students in the same stage, and like and they're both their primary instructor, usually I'd try to keep them a pace at the same. But if they start breaking apart, hey, there's nothing I can do. There might be certain grounds that I can give. If my student who is catching on to things faster, one thing that I like to do, if I see is a really strong student, to make them really test their knowledge, I would have them teach the students that aren't doing as well. That's twofold. It helps the students who don't understand yet because they're probably getting a new perspective. B, the student who thinks he understands it all, actually trying to teach it is a whole different challenge. It really challenges their brain, like, do I actually understand this? So that's something that I would do as a primary instructor to help students, both my types of students at the same time.
Thank you.
Yep, Samuel.
So these Elevate courses, are they going to like properly prepare us for the PAR exam, or do we have to do like extra basically? Like I know we have to do extra studying and stuff. We have to go on Shepherd Air and take the practice tests, but is that all going to sufficiently prepare us for it?
If you are able to get through all these elevates, if you're able to get through the GIS videos, if you're able to get the study buddy done and all that, then yes, I do believe you should be sufficiently prepared.
Can you remind me what the study buddy is?
Some people do study buddy, some people do the Prepware app. Those apps that you can use to get the 390%.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Charles.
We talked about it a little bit yesterday, but I know after the PAR, there were two specific exams, one being the instrument that you said we could really get ahead with. What were those two exams?
So once you finish the private pilot exam, the very next one is going to be the instrument, which is the IRA, the India Romeo Alpha. All right, that's going to be for your instrument test, and it can be studied through Shepherd Air. Now, when you're studying for the IRA, the question bank that you are given for the IRA, it is literally the exact same question bank minus like plus or minus 2 questions for the FII exam. That's the F, that is the Foxtrot India exam. So if you're going to take one, take the other one at the exact same time. Don't need to buy separate test prep for both.
I'm sorry, I just got disconnected for a minute. I have the instrument IRA studied through Shepherd Air, and then the second one was
the FII, so Foxtrot India.
And you said those could be studied and taken at the same time?
Yep, all you have to do is study for the IRA using that question bank, and you should also get the FII is plus or minus 2 questions from the exact same question bank.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Sorry,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jacob. What?
I was just gonna say, what do those actually stand for? Like, what does FII actually stand for? Like, is that flight instructor?
FII is flight instructor instrument.
And IRA was?
Instrument rating airplane.
Thank you.
Yep. Caitlin.
Are all the videos provided by ATP everything that needs to be covered in like that specific certification, or do they expect us to also like find other videos on YouTube and like on the internet and stuff? Like if we just watched all the videos on ATP, will that cover everything?
It should. I mean, if we're talking about the knowledge-wise, will cover everything. I mean, yeah. If anything else that needs to be covered for your check ride, you'll be going through it with your primary instructor.
Okay.
Nicole, I think you were next.
Hi, yes. So for the IRA and the FII, you would suggest using Shepherd for everything past private, correct?
Literally every test but private, use Shepherd Air.
Shepherd Air, and so you said that those tests kind of correlate with each other.
Yeah, so if you study for the IRA, you don't need to get a whole other test prep for the FII. Just take the next exam, same day, good to go.
Same day. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yep. Annie.
To study for the PAR, is it essentially do we have to study it all before we take a practice test, or is the practice test the studying? Like, do the incorrect questions show us what we need to learn?
I mean, depending on what exact app you're using, but it should, yes. But what I can suggest is going through the individual categories first, and then doing the actual practice test.
Okay, thank you.
Jacob. Honey Bunches, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't lower my hand.
Okay, cool. All right. If one has completed some written exams, who do we send our scores to? I would go ahead and send that to training support and or the Elevate team.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Benjamin.
When I went for my discovery flight, the instructor I went to said that I could send it to him too. Does that also work?
So you're going to have to also go over any missed questions that you had on your exam with your primary instructor. But if it comes to who you're going to send your exam to for ATP, usually you're either going to give it, I mean, if you were taking it on site, you give it to your trained support specialist and they go ahead and scan it for you. But in this case, since you're not even at ATP yet, I'd still send it to trained support or the Elevate team or both.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yep. Nicole.
Sorry, I'm not sure if this question has been answered yet, but in order to be endorsed for your IRA and FII, is it the same process? 3 practice test,
So
screenshotted and sent over?
you do need to be endorsed for your IRA, so the exact same process, 390s. But because the FII is for an instructor level knowledge test, you actually don't need to be endorsed for it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep. Manuel.
Mine is the exact same question that Nicole had, but for the PAR.
Like, yes, you need an endorsement from the PAR. What's your question? Is that your question?
Yeah, but for the instructor, from the instructor perspective.
Oh, I mean, the PAR has to be given by a CFI, which everyone here is. Corias's commercial have to be endorsed. The CACs, that does have to be endorsed as well. Yes. The only ones that you don't need an endorsement for is for your FII and FIA and FOI. They're instructor level endorsed written exams.
So basically, if once I'm done with the PAR, I can already start hitting the private for instructor. Am I right?
Yes, there's for the CFI. Yeah, you can if you want. Joshua asked, do we need to be endorsed by ATP? Can we endorse by another party like Sporties if we like? Yo, if you get endorsed by absolutely anybody, I don't think we really care that much, as long as you get show us the test result.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, Colt.
Are the elevates required to take the IRA?
So someone just asked that, and we were talking about it over lunch, and I think we came to the consensus that the answer is no. You can just go ahead and send us 390s.
All right, thank you.
Kyle says AKT and PAR are the same knowledge test, correct? I can't tell you about no AKT. I took the PAR. That's all I know. That's all I know, the PAR. All right. So that was a lot of questions. I'm gonna give you guys a little mini break. It's currently 34 minutes past the hour. I will see you guys 40 minutes past the hour. Alrighty, and we are coming back. We're gonna start on the aeronautical decision making. Perfection. Everyone is turning on their cameras. Love it, love it, love it. Alrighty. Good, good, good. Ooh, Lauren, you naughty, naughty girl. So Lauren asked, what is the success rate of this program? Well, I think it really depends on, I think it depends on what you're asking, is how many people actually finish the program, or how many people like quit, or how many people are booted. What's your question, Lauren?
I think it's like how many people make it all the way through.
How many people make it all the way through?
Mhm.
The majority of the student, I haven't seen the actual statistics, but I did most of my training out of Fort Lauderdale, and I did a lot of time there as a primary instructor. I would say like 80 to 85% go all the way through. I know there's quite a few people who might have decided to defer CFI and things like that because they just realized, hey, I am not an instructor. There's no way I want to do that. So they finished off their multi-time and did that instead. But most people make it all the way through, from my experience at least. Vincent, how does deferral work? I don't know. I never actually did it. I had students who asked me about it. I didn't do it, so I can't tell you. Mina.
All right, so when we're saying all the way through, are we talking about all the way to 1,500 hours, or are we talking about through the program itself?
Talking about the program itself. I haven't made it to my 1,500 hours yet, so all right, I'm working on it, all right?
So how many ATP students or ATP alum actually make it to 1,500 hours?
I mean, if they're not doing it here, as far as I know, they're doing it somewhere else. If you get through the program decently well, I think the last time I heard it, you need to have 3 or less check ride busts to be considered to be an instructor for ATP. So yeah, getting through the whole program through 1,500 is very possible. Jacob.
What's your experience with the cadet programs like the Frontier, the PSA, or a Republic? Have you interacted with those at all, or have any friends that have?
Yeah, I've had plenty of friends who went to Frontier. They interviewed, found out like a month later that they got into the program and they were good to go. I'm pretty sure with Frontier, you don't have to you don't even have to wait until the end of your student program to apply. I'm at about 900 hours, and I have an interview with Spirit later this month. Hair flip. Annie.
I heard a little rumor that the 1,500 might be going down to 1,000. Have you heard anything about that?
I think it's just smoke and mirrors.
Fair.
Yep. Garrett.
Is it common for people to fail a check ride? And if so, what happens?
So I'm not gonna say it's like you see it happen, but there are quite a few students who go through the program 7 for 7. Like they passed all 7 check rides. I had a bust. I had 1 bust. So if you bust a check ride, you'll probably have to do, like, depending on how much you busted on, you might need to do a proficiency flight. You may need to do more than one of those. With that, they usually try to take time out of somewhere else in the program, and then you take the check ride again. Samuel.
So ATP initially says like from 0, no training, to pilot in 2 years. Do you think that's feasible? Like 0 to 1,500 hours in 2 years?
Not in my experience, but I know there's other people who are absolutely amazing and have really good, like decent luck, they get through no problem in 2 years. It has been done. I know, for example, we promised a 7-month program. It took me about 8.5 months, but that wasn't ATP's fault. It was weather, maintenance. I busted that check ride, which took some time for retraining and all that. And then when it comes to get the rest of your hours, there was a while there where I had to wait to become an instructor for a little bit. And then after that, there was like this one entire month where I feel like I got 0 hours because there was a hurricane coming through. So instead of getting a good amount of hours, I got like 20 in 1 month. So it just really depends.
And what's a more realistic expectation then, would you say?
This is everything I'm saying right now is not official ATP stuff.
Of course.
But in my opinion, about 2.5 years is more realistic.
Okay.
Blake.
What check ride did you bust and why?
I busted on instrument, and there was a really weird situation where we were told to look out for different traffic in different areas, and here I was under my view limiting devices, and we're in Fort Lauderdale. Fort Lauderdale can get very busy, so I kind of froze for 1 second trying to figure out, do I keep on moving or do I wait for him to tell me there's traffic? And I froze for a second too long and I couldn't get to my point that I needed to get to. So it was a communication thing, totally my fault.
Noted. Thank you.
Daniel.
So if you were to hypothetically bust 3 or more check rides, that means you can't be a CFI for ATP. You'd have to like get your hours to 1500 elsewhere.
I haven't personally talked to anyone who had more than 3 check ride busts and actually applied to ATP and like went through that experience. But from what I have heard is that they don't like to accept instructors with more than 3 check ride busts.
Gotcha.
Nicole.
So you said 2.5 years to complete. That's from start to finish.
Yes, that is my estimation.
From private to legacies or regionals.
Yeah, like for example, I started in June, I believe, of 2022. I should be out of here by November of this year, I believe is my estimation. So about 2.5, yeah.
Awesome, thanks.
Yep. Blake, your hand?
Sorry, I'll take it down.
Cool. All right, is the DPE shortage real? Yes, it's a thing. But ATP is working very hard to either get new DPEs or manage it so they can send you to a different location with your plane to take the exam there. All right, Manuel.
What are the chances of becoming an instructor on the same academy that you're going?
It depends on the location you're going to. I can't give you any type of straight answer with that.
Well,
I only had to wait like a month. There are other people that had to wait 6 months before they got into their location of choice.
You say you went to Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm going to. So any tips or anything?
Be very nice to the TSS.
Okay.
Are there DPEs that solely do ATP check rides or just FAT assigned DPE? Just FAA assigned DPE. So there are regular DPEs that we do use. They have been checked out by ATP. They know how we operate. They do, and we actually like vet them at the same time. So do we bring in new DPEs? Absolutely, but most likely, are you going to have someone that has been used multiple times? Sure, I would say so.
Okay.
All right, aeronautical decision making. Like I was saying, next lesson. Let's do this. So, what is ADM? ADM is that aeronautical decision making. Now, it's decision making in a very unique environment, aviation. It is a systematic approach to the mental process used by pilots to consistently determine the best course of action in response to a given set of circumstances. That is a direct quote. All right. What does that mean? Well, let's dig deeper, shall we? First, we're going to talk about human factors. Just a quick side note on that. Surprisingly, there's little human error from the technical aspects of working in like a multi-person cockpit. There have been long-term NASA research that discovered most problems are associated with poor group decision-making, ineffective communication, or inadequate leadership, or poor task or resource management. One way to think about this, you got one bucket of luck and one bucket of experience or skill. And our deal here at ATP is to fill your bucket of experience and skill without running out of your bucket of luck, right? That is our main goal here at ATP. Now, can good judgment actually be taught? Well, people say generally, yeah. So today's lesson isn't directly focused on teaching you all about good judgment. You're all adults, so we hope that you have already a great deal of respect for your own lives. But you need to know that ADM still, how to say this? You need to know about ADM and how it's the best way to effectively make good decisions pertaining to flying and hazards that like oppose everybody. So, directly from the FAA, the importance of learning and understanding effective ADM skills cannot be overemphasized. If I haven't harped it enough, this is a big topic. It will be covered on your check rides. All right, so first, let's talk about how flying itself is inherently risky. All right. You always need to be aware of that fact. Every single time you get in that plane, you are taking a risk already. Step one, risk. All right. So here are 4 fundamental principles for risk management. Numero uno, accept no unnecessary risk. All right. Flying is not possible without risk, but unnecessary risk comes without a corresponding return. If you are flying a new airplane for the very first time, you might determine the risk of making that flight in low visibility conditions is an unnecessary risk. You might be saying, I'm already taking a risk by flying a brand new plane that I've never flown before. Maybe I shouldn't add an extra risk by saying, it's kind of low visibility out there. Maybe that's too much, all right? Then, accept risks when benefit outweighs dangers or costs. So in any flying activity, like I've been saying, it is necessary to accept some degree of risk. However, if you have a day with good weather, for example, it is much better time to fly an unfamiliar plane for the first time than a day with low IFR conditions. So if you are going to learn how to fly a new plane, if you have a good weather day out, that would be an acceptable risk, right? When the benefits outweigh the dangers. Now, integrate risk management into planning at all levels. Because risk is an unavoidable part of every flight, safety requires the use of appropriate and effective risk management, not just in the pre-flight planning stage, but in all your stages of flight. All right? So, you need to make risk decisions at the appropriate level. Risk decisions should be made by the person who can develop and implement risk controls. Remember, URPIC. That is what we're training you to do. We are training you to be pilots in command. So if it's an actual dangerous or scary situation, you never let anybody, not ATC, not your passengers, nobody, make a bad decision for you. All right? Now, if AT tells you turn left to this heading, and you're going right towards a thunderstorm, that does not mean you to cuss them out. All it means is you say, hey, there's a thunderstorm in this direction. I need to deviate here or here. So they might have told you to go one direction, but you're also telling them, hey, this is happening. I'm going to deviate either here or here. I gave you options, right? So it's kind of just how you're able to mitigate those risks. All right, so your mileage may vary. This is talking about your experience. So, for example, pilots arrive to pre-flight and discovers a small, blunt type nick in the leading edge at the middle of an aircraft's prop. Since the aircraft is parked on the tarmac, that nick was probably caused by another aircraft's prop wash, blowing some type of debris on the propeller. Now, the nick on the prop in this situation is the hazard. The risk is the prop fracture if the engine is operated with damage to a prop blade. Well, if you are a seasoned pilot, you may see the nick as a kind of low risk. You might realize this type of nick diffuses stress over a large area, and since it's in the middle of the prop, it might be okay. Is located at the strongest portion of the propeller, and based on experience, you might not expect it to propagate a crack that can lead to high-risk problems, and you might not cancel your flight. Now, if you are an inexperienced pilot, this would be different. You may see the nick as a high-risk factor because you're unsure of the effect the nick will actually have on the prop. And you've been told, I wonder by who? Maybe by Samuel in my very last class who told me how to pre-flight a plane and look for nicks on a propeller. I don't know. But anyways, you might see that nick on a propeller and be like, oh, that's a really bad thing. I don't want to fly with a nick on the propeller because that could turn into a crack and that would really hurt the rest of my flight and my life. So, elements or factors affecting individuals are different and profoundly impact decision making. Those are called human factors, and they can just transcend your actual education, your experience, your health, your physiological aspects. It really does, it transcends all these different factors. It's based on what you believe and how your judgment goes into it. So, this is called the risk assessment matrix, right? So this risk matrix can be used for almost any operation by assigning likelihood and consequence. So in the case presented, the pilot assigned a likelihood of, let's say, occasional and the severity as catastrophic. As you can see, this falls in the high risk area. Let's do another example. Let's say you go out to pre-flight and you kind of realize, I'm pretty sure this tire is a little more flat than I think it should be. Well, you might look in here. If I go out to fly and by the time I land, that tire could be completely flat, how bad would that be? Probably pretty catastrophic. But if you compare it to other wheels, you're like, maybe it's actually not that flat. Is that actually probable or improbable? Well, maybe it's occasional to remote, and you'd actually put into the risk assessment matrix how this should affect your flight. Now, let's do like a silly one. Let's say your student is terrified that Godzilla himself is going to come out of that ocean and grab your little plane out of the sky. Well, would that be catastrophic or negligible? Probably catastrophic. But how likely is that to actually happen? That is going to be improbable, right? So, placing these things on the risk assessment matrix can actually help you decide how it will affect your flight. So, deciding to not fly is sometimes the best decision to make. It's up to you to develop the skill to know when it's too much to handle and make the safer decision over the exciting one. You can try to mitigate risk, you can eliminate it completely, or you can just control it. Now, we at ATP do not propagate this app. Like, this is not us, right? But let's still talk about it because it's still a situational awareness tool. You can have the FRAT, which is the flight risk assessment tool. Now, a direct quote from their website. A FRAT helps you to identify the risk profile as you plan a flight. Factors such as the type of operation, environment, aircraft, crew training, and overall operating experience are evaluated by the tool. This helps you determine if the flight falls in the low, medium, or high risk category. More importantly, after seeing the data, you can develop risk mitigation strategies to ensure your safety as well as the safety of your passengers. Last year, who knows what year this was actually published, but last year, 384 people died in 238 general aviation incidents. Use all your available resources not to become another statistic. That is from their website. So basically, it is an app where you can put in a whole bunch of different factors and it will try to use math to tell you, hey, either this is too risky or this is not, this is absolutely fine. So when we use this type of, app, you're relying heavily on math and history and things like that. I believe, like, again, I'm not trying to be a spokesperson for ATP when I say this, but it is my personal belief that I'm not sure an app will able to take absolutely every single variable out there that I can judge better for myself. So is this a cool tool for situational awareness? And have I met students out there that actually use it? Yeah, but we're not ones to really promote it here at ATP. We would like you to try to make that decision. Samuel.
Would this still be a good tool for beginners, like when we really don't know anything, just to try and get us familiar with the potential risks of flying?
So I don't promote it. I like my students to come to me as their instructor, and we'll talk through all the factors together so my student can learn how to make those decisions for themselves. Manuel.
I have used FRATs before in the previous company I've been working for. As a rule of thumb for everybody, a FRAT is mainly used as a way to assess the entire situation of the operation, mainly to see if there's going to be adverse weather, if the airports are going to be in a certain condition, if the captain is properly trained, et cetera, et cetera. But no, it does not really account for personal situation at the moment, because you don't know if your captain at that time is exhausted or not. But mainly, like the big airlines, they like to use that tool for that sort of those sorts of assessments.
Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So, talking a little bit more about the human factor. So it is estimated, like I said earlier in this slide deck, that approximately 80% of all aviation accidents are related to human factors. And the vast majority of these accidents occur during landing and takeoff. All right. So the human factor is really a lot of times based on experience, knowledge, and even personality. So, does the importance of the mission dictate the level of risk we're willing to accept? Let's run a couple scenarios, shall we? All right, so you are a newly minted private pilot with 87 hours total time, with 14 hours of that 87 in the make and model of airplane you will be flying. The flight in question is 1 hour and 27 minutes. All right. More details? Your weather is forecasted to be marginal VFR, but should improve as the day wears on. You were able to sleep for 6 hours. What do you guys think? Go or no go? Seeing quite a few thumbs down. Anyone else have a different opinion? Miles, send it. Depends on the margin. No go in my opinion from Joshua. All right. Cool. Let's see. All right. Nicole, do you have your hand up?
No, I accidentally hit it.
Cool. Kompeng, what's up?
What does MDFR mean?
That means marginal VFR, meaning that you have weather clearances that are less than VFR, but more than IFR. That's a whole nother lesson. We'll get into it during weather, I promise.
What does VFR mean then?
Visual flight rules.
Okay.
Yep. All right, so personal attitudes influence your decision making, okay? This will be covered on your PAR. This will be covered on your check ride. Everyone whip out your notebook at this time. Got it? Cool. All right, so there are 5 hazardous attitudes that the FAA have deemed are the most common. And each of their attitudes, they've been very nice, and they create their own little antidotes. So they want you to be able to recognize these hazardous attitudes, label them for what they are, and state the corresponding antidote. Okay? So memorize this. All right, I did no cheating. All right, so the way I like to memorize this, so I remember every single one and don't forget any. Give you guys the acronym. MIRIA. That is my acronym, so I remember every single one. All right, so, however, the slide is set up this way, so we're gonna do it in their order. So first one they have here is anti-authority, all right? This is the don't tell me what to do. This attitude is found in people who do not like anyone telling them what to do. In a sense, they're saying, no one can tell me what to do. They may be resentful of someone having to tell them to do, having to tell them what to do, or may regard rules, regulations, or procedures as silly or unnecessary. However, it is always your prerogative to question authority if you feel it's an error. Like I said before, if ATC tells you to turn directly into a thunderstorm, it's not anti-authority to say, hey, we're going directly into the eye of the storm here. I need to deviate either here or here. That's different than anti-authority. Anti-authority is saying, I'm going to do whatever the heck I want. No one can tell me what to do. So the antidote for anti-authority is follow the rules. They are usually right. All right, next we're going to talk about impulsivity. This is the do it quickly kind of thing. This is the attitude of people who frequently feel the need to do something, anything, immediately. They don't stop to think about what they are about to do. They do not select the best alternative. They do the best thing that comes to mind. One of the biggest examples that people usually use for this one is if you and your buddy are hanging out and your buddy says, hey, you're a private pilot, let's go flying right now. And you're like, yeah, let's go flying. So you just go out there, you jump in the plane, you don't do any pre-flight, you don't look at the weather, nothing, you just go. That would be impulsivity as the hazardous attitude. So, antidote is not so fast, think first. Isn't the FAA just so creative? We love those guys, you know? All right, next one is going to be invulnerability. So the people who have invulnerability as the hazardous attitude, it's the it won't happen to me kind of thought. It won't happen to me. Many people falsely believe that accidents happens to others, but never to them. They know accidents can happen and they know that anyone can be affected. However, They never really feel or believe that they will be personally involved. Pilots who think this way are more likely to take chances and increase risk. So let's say you know about this one airfield that always gets really busy, and it's a non-towered field and it's an uncontrolled airspace. You go in there all the time. You never use your radio. Nothing ever happens. You just go right in. Nothing's ever happened before. That can start building an invulnerability hazardous attitude. If you're going into an airfield without talking to anybody, you can create a lot of dangerous situations there where someone doesn't know you're coming in and they could run directly into you. So the hazardous antidote is it could happen to me. The next one is we're going to talk about is macho. And with macho, it is the I can do it kind of attitude there. Pilots who are always trying to prove that they are better than anyone else think, like, I can do it, I'll show them. Pilots with this type of attitude will try to prove themselves by taking risks in order to impress others. While this pattern is thought to be a male characteristic, women are just as easily susceptible. You know that one guy, I mean, for those of you who are 21, of course, the ones that one guy at the bar that's like, hold my beer, I got this. That is that macho hazardous attitude right there. So the antidote is taking chances is foolish. All right. Lastly, we have resignation. Now, resignation is what kind of we think is, what's the use? Like pilots who think, what's the use, do not see themselves as being able to make a great deal of difference in what happens to them. When things go well, the pilot is apt to think, that was just luck. When things go badly, the pilot can also feel that someone is out to get them or attribute it to bad luck. Now, the pilot that does this usually will leave actions to others, for better or for worse. Sometimes such pilots will even go along with unreasonable requests just to be like a nice guy. This one antidote is, I am not helpless. I can make a difference. Now, my seat just went down. Every pilot at some point is going to experience a hazardous attitude. Absolutely no one is golden star perfect, never had a hazardous attitude in their life. I know when I was in flight training, I could experience resignation. For example, there was this one flight where I was going out and I was supposed to go out and do maneuvers. I had worked so hard on those maneuvers, but when I say I went out and did my very first one and I completely bombed it, I bombed. It was bad. And after that point, I couldn't do a single thing right. I got that negative mindset. I can't do this. I'm horrible. There's no way I'm ever going to get better at this. I was experiencing resignation. If I just try to coach myself through it and say, I'm not helpless, I actually worked really hard for this, I can make a difference, I could have made a much better flight. But I was stuck in that hazardous attitude. So, we talked about Myria, we talked about the 5 hazardous attitudes and their antidotes. Now we're talking about mitigation. Well, mitigating risk is a necessary trait of a safe pilot, right? Our toolkit of tricks to lower both risks and hazards. So, let's say you are flying from Muleshoe, maybe, Texas, to Plainview, Texas, which is 45 miles away. In that marginal VFR, that marginal visual flight rules weather, and a new private pilot can mitigate that risk by what? Well, wait for the weather to improve. That's step 1, right? 2, just delay the flight until another day. Tomorrow's probably better. You could take along with you someone who is instrument rated. Take me with you. I'll fly through the clouds. No big deal. Let's do this. Party. And then last one is if just canceling the flight altogether. If there's any question, just cancel the flight. Who cares? You can find another way. Samuel.
Are we going to learn in the Elevate courses how to effectively read charts like that?
Which part?
This, yeah, this chart that's displayed here, just like to look at this and understand the meanings of the symbols and numbers that are all over this thing.
There's a class on it, yep.
Okay.
So, if you have to be somewhere, just get in the car and freaking drive, right? So, when I was at Spirit, one flight that, especially in the summertime, always got delayed was the flight in between Fort Lauderdale and Orlando. Now, don't ask me why. This flight was packed every single day. And it's a 37-minute flight. 37 minutes! And because it was so freaking like hot in the summertime, there's always going to be thunderstorms every day, right around the time of this flight. So this flight was constantly getting delayed, and people were just freaking out. They were freaking out, and all I could tell these people were like, "All right, by the time you drive to the airport, you check in, you get through security, you actually get on the plane, you have to wait to take off." Then you actually take off. Then you have to go pick up your baggage from baggage claim and all that. By then, it's basically been the 3.5 hours that it would have taken you just to drive there in the first place. These people would drive me crazy. But, you know, I digress. Whatever. I thought Spirit would fly through tornadoes. Heck yeah, we do. You're welcome. Just kidding. Just kidding. We're very safe pilots. All right. All right. Moving on. So, different systems we can deploy to risk management. There are many. We'll talk about a few. Yada yada yada. So by now, I think we're at least getting the idea of risk management. We said that risk is always involved with flying. There's no getting around it. There's just being able to mitigate risks that you don't have to take, or actually not taking unnecessary risk whatsoever. And however, it never actually goes away. We just do the best we can to manage or limit its effects. So, who remembers the I'm safe checklist from yesterday? We taught it yesterday. I know someone remembers it. Bring it on. Nicole.
Hang on. So it's illness, medication, stress, alcohol, fatigue, eating.
She did it. She did it. Yeah. All right. That is the I'm safe checklist. We went over that yesterday. I told you y'all going to use that every day for the rest of your life. So this is to gauge your physical and mental readiness for flight. All right. That's the purpose of I'm safe. All right. Now we're going to be going over another acronym. It's known as PAVE. Okay. This is for hazard recognition. All right. For hazard recognition. All right, so for anyone who still needs to write it down, here's the I'm safe checklist again, just to refresh your memory. All right, now we're going to get started on PAVE, okay? So, PAVE, the P is going to start with the pilot, all right? So this goes beyond, like, I would kind of, sometimes I include I'm safe in the P for pilot, because this is all about you, right? I'm safe is all about you. So that kind of goes under the P for pilot. What's up, Drew?
Do they change the I'm safe for this section, because the E is emotion here, but it's eating when we first learned it.
I am so happy whenever anyone notices this. Some people say eating, some people say emotion. I feel like they're interchangeable.
Okay.
Cool. So, I'm safe kind of goes under the P for pilot because this is all about you, right? But it can also go beyond that. It's also talking about how much experience you have, things like that. Everything that's due to you that goes under pilot, all right? So, then we're going to go to aircraft. Your aircraft itself, has it had all of its inspections? Does it have all the necessary equipment? Does it have all the necessary documentation on board? Anything to do with your aircraft is in the A of PAVE. So inspections, paperwork, equipment, all that. Maintenance binder. That would be all under the A for aircraft in PAVE. Now the next letter is kind of like a cheap way out, but they made the acronym, so hey, I'm not hating on it. V for environment. There's a V somewhere in it, so it counts, okay? So environment. So this is gonna go into, a lot of it is talking about weather, right? How is the weather between you and your next field? How are you going to mitigate this risk? But I also kind of include in there anything to do with your performance on, like, for the flight, both takeoff and landing, all that type of things that have to do with like temperature, humidity, and pressure, things like that. All those calculations I'd put under environment. Lastly, E is for external pressure. All right. So with external pressure, we're kind of talking about who's deciding to make this flight. Are you as PIC deciding to do this flight? Or are you letting your boss or a friend or a passenger decide to make this flight? So it's really up to you to decide how to make this, do you believe this safe or are you being pressured from someone else? Alrighty. Next, we're talking about personal minimums. Let me look it up real quick. Bam, 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 everyone. Before you guys take your check ride, you will be filling one of these out, okay? You are literally putting in there your personal comfort level, not what you should be able to do, but what you feel you're able to do, okay? So, what conditions are you, yes, Corey, you'll learn NW craft for your check ride. What conditions would you be able to be comfortable flying in? Now, a really big reason that DPEs love it when you have these things written down. If I decide, all right, here's a good example. I decide that I'm gonna go on a diet, right? I say, that started this morning. But when it comes to dinner time, you know what? It's fine, I'll start the next day instead. If I have a written contract, it is so much harder to say, oh, I'm going to start this tomorrow because I already dated it it was starting today. Same thing with your personal minimums for flying. If you just say out loud, well, I like to have a maximum of 10 knot crosswind, but then the day of your check ride, it's a 12 knot crosswind, you might be tempted just to say, it's fine. It's only 2 knots more, but you already have that written down. So that a DPE is going to say, all right, this does not go within your personal minimums. Are you sure you want to fly? When he asks that, your answer is always going to be no. That's not within your personal minimums because it's so much harder to go against your personal minimums when they're written down. All right. Personal SOPs, personal standard operating procedures. All I can say is, Lauren.
If you do have to cancel a check ride because of one of those minimums, is that something you're penalized for, like for rescheduling?
So it's really gonna depend, I'm like, to be completely honest, it's up to the DPE. I have some DPEs there, if you're gonna cancel a check ride, it needs to be canceled the night before, right? Some of them say if you cancel the night before, they will not charge you. Others say, like, cause he'll say, like, if you show up to the check ride, knowing you're not going to fly, and you still make him sit through it, yeah, he's gonna charge you and then charge you a recheck fee, like half price or something for the next time. It just really depends on the DPE. So if you really communicate with your TSS or the DPE before that date, you should be able to cover your butt. Annie,
What did SOP stand for again? I'm sorry.
standard operating procedure. All right, so your personal standard operating procedure. Diego says, how much are check rides? Again, it depends on the DPE. They set their own prices. So you'd have to find out when you get assigned a DPE how much he is or she is. So how can you manage the external pressures? Telling you right now, it is contingencies to contingencies. Always plan ahead. Expect the unexpected. All the usual cliches. Whoever, Corey said 600 and 900, usually around 500 USD, said Manuel. I have never had a check ride that was only $500. The cheapest one I had was $900. Beyond that, my most expensive one was $1,500. So it also depends on what area you're in, so it really changes. Nicole.
So for those check rides, I think I applied for that with my loan for to kind of like compensate myself. Would I submit a receipt to get that money back as well for my check rides, or is that?
So I didn't go through Sally Mae, so I can't tell you specifically, but as far as I know, yes, that's how it works. But I didn't take it out
Okay.
myself, so I did that down road here.
So the school's not paying them with
Right.
our loan money. Okay.
Right. Lauren.
I was told by Sally Mae that they don't cover check rides. Is that something that we have to finance on our own?
Yo, again, I didn't take out Sally Mae. I know they reimburse you guys for things, but I can't tell
Hey,
you for
so
sure.
I talked to training support about this a couple weeks ago, and when you applied for your Sally Mae loan, it was like, 102 or 108,000, one of those numbers, depending on when you locked in your price. And you could apply for an additional amount. So like I applied for 116,000, and the overage is what you can use to pay for your check ride.
There you go. Firm answer. Love it. So, our lovely friends at the NTSB, these people are the people that actually investigate every single accident out there. Accidents happen every day. And you ask any air controller, how many accidents or emergencies a day do you see? They're gonna tell you, a lot. There's at least one every single day. So, the federal administration that actually investigates all these accidents is the National Transportation Safety Board, the NTSB. All right. So on the NTSB website, they actually have case studies of all the different accidents that has ever happened, and they can actually start pinpointing why accidents happen and how they best can be avoided. So a pilot is always learning. And accidents reports from NTSB and aviation safety have great resources that allow research and learning opportunities. You can find out why this Cessna 172 porpoised 8 times after a hard landing. You can see why aborted takeoff on snow-covered runway actually bent a Cessna 182. The way I like to personally relate to this is whenever there is a check ride failure at your training center, that is a learning opportunity. You find out what went wrong in their check ride. So so the next person knows what not to do. It's not seen as creepy trying to find out what happened. We all do it. We all want to learn. So if someone unfortunately busts, That's an even better learning opportunity than someone that just passed with the easy A. Operational pitfalls. So, does anyone know what scud running is? Mina.
It's basically doing something that you know might be unsafe just for get their itis or other external pressures.
You're not wrong, but I want to be a little bit more specific. Who knows? Manuel.
Basically flying under the cloud level.
Okay, again, not wrong at all. So scud running is kind of when you have a very low ceiling and you're forced to fly very close to the ground for a very long time. So let's say you were planning on making this flight at 4,500 feet, but now you're down to about like 600, flying over the ground trying to get to your next destination. Does that sound very safe? No. But that would be scud running. You have a very low ceiling and you're trying to fly underneath it. Samuel.
I thought 1,000 feet was the minimum ceiling. Like I thought you weren't even allowed to do that.
That's why it's called scud running. You're not doing the right thing.
Noted.
So this can often happen when you get their itis and you're like, I'm just gonna go. It's fine. The clouds will stay there, and they start descending lower and lower, and you just get lower and lower yourself. When you're going from VFR to IMC, if you're going from visual flight rules to instrument meteorological conditions, meaning you're not an instrument pilot, but you decide to go through the clouds anyways. Drew, stop drawing. That's going to be.
Sorry.
That is going to be something that you are not yet trained to do. When you get into your instrument phases, you guys are going to be forced to watch a little clip of the video. I'm pretty sure it's called 87 seconds. And they did this one study where they took a whole bunch of private pilots with no previous experience flying in the clouds, and they sent them all in simulators, putting them in complete clouds, no visibility outside. The average time it took them to just completely crash to the ground and in the simulator die, 87 seconds. That's it. So, trying to go in the clouds without any training is not a very good idea. You can also have a big loss of situational awareness. So let's say an instructor needs to, you're out flying with your instructor, right? And you guys need to return the plane as soon as possible. First off, you're already running late. The next instructor and student have already been texting you and calling you and asking you to hurry up because you're already late. Sounds like a pretty rough time. We've all been there. Oopsies, I made a poopsies. I stayed out too long, right? Now, it's up to you to do what you know is right to ensure safety. You don't allow those external factors to cause you to make rash decisions. This exact same thing would be true in the airlines. So, who can tell me what CRM stands for?
For resource management.
Oh, okay. You jumped right in there. Crew resource management. That is correct. CRM stands for crew resource management. All right. Now, when you are in the plane by yourself, do you have a big line of crew with you? No, you do not. No, you do not. Which is why they created what's known as SRM, or Single Pilot Resource Management. Now, handling absolutely everything yourself is stressful, right? You need to learn how to take your time. So single pilot resource management is about how to gather information, analyze it, and how to make decisions. Learning how to identify problems, analyze information, and make informed and timely decisions is not as straightforward as the training involved in learning specific maneuvers. Learning how to judge situation and how to think in the endless variety of situations that you can encounter while flying out in the real world is a lot more difficult. So there is no one straight right answer to ADM. Rather, each pilot is expected to analyze each situation in light of their personal experience level, their personal minimums, and current physical mental readiness level to make your own decision. Like, decide based on all the factors that you can gather about yourself, the plane, the terrain, to make your own decision for what is safest, because you are PIC. All right. Now, very quickly here, we're going to get into the 5 Ps. All right. So SRM sounds good on paper, but it requires a way for pilots to understand it, use it in their daily flights. So the 5 Ps are used to evaluate the pilot's current situation, like at key points during the flight or when an emergency arises. And they're based on the idea that pilots have essentially 5 variables that impact, that impact his or her environment, and forcing him or her to make a single critical decision, or like a lot of smaller decisions that lead up to one pivotal moment, right? So you have the plan itself, the plane, the aircraft, the pilot, you, the passengers, these little dancing fellas, and the programming, all of your avionics. These are a lot of the variables that you're going to have to actually consider at different key points throughout your flight. Now, when are those key moments? Well, let's discover, shall we? So, the first decision point is your pre-flight, right? In the flight planning room, where all the information you need is readily available to make a sound decision, where communication and your FBO are readily available to make alternate travel plans. That's your first place you can decide go or no go, right? The second easiest point in the flight to make a critical safety decision is just prior to takeoff. Like, very few pilots out there have ever had to make an emergency takeoff, but they have had to make emergency landings. So if you never take off in the first place, that next really critical moment is when you're holding short of the runway. That's your last chance to say yes or no. All right? Then that third place to review the 5 Ps is usually right around the midpoint of the flight. They say hourly in the flight here. I like to call it more midway in the flight. It makes it more a little easier for me. Often pilots may wait until they're close enough to their destination to get the weather information, right? It's supposed to be questionable weather, but I'll just find out when I get there and I'll figure it out then. Well, if you're already close enough to your destination to actually start picking up the weather, you have already passed quite a few airports along the way that you could have stopped at, gotten fuel, or gotten more information in the meantime before you go into your destination, which may now have bad weather. So if you start figuring out other places you can land along the way, that's half the battle right there. Now, the last 2 decision points are just prior to descent into the terminal area, or just before you're entering the traffic pattern at the airport. So why are these the last 2 places? Well, before you start your descent, right? If you're still high enough in the air, you still have access to a whole bunch of different airports around you. You're still high enough, you can still pick up most of their frequencies. You can have more decisions up in the air, right? You just have more access to more stuff. Before you start your descent and kind of commit to one airport, like going down to one airport, that is kind of a critical area. Now, the last one is going to be once you're actually in their traffic pattern, like at the airport itself. You're coming in, you're about to land, you're in the traffic pattern. This is going to be your last chance to decide go or no go. We already said that takeoff and landings are the most dangerous times. So this is your last chance to say either I'm going to try to land here, or possibly the winds are too great and I don't need to land here. I need to land somewhere else. So we have only scratched the surface today of what everything that can be asked about ADM. However, thanks to our friends at the FAA, we also have an entire book on it, the Risk Management Handbook given out by the FAA. Good resource. Awesome. Questions? Claudia.
So let's say you get into a situation where you're brand new at this and something happens with your pilot. What do you do then?
If you're brand new to this and something happens to like your pilot or your instructor?
Your instructor, yeah.
So if you're brand new to this, and let's say right next to you, your instructor starts having a heart attack. Well, knock on all the woods, because I'm probably that instructor, so all the woods. When you're coming in on, and if your instructor starts having a heart attack, one of the very first things that we're going to teach you is, going out in the plane in simple turns and simple descents and climbs. Next, we go over like 1 or 2 flights of maneuvers. That's it. As soon as we get through that, we go through TOLs, your takeoffs and landings. So takeoffs and landings is one of the first 4 flights that you're going to be doing. One of the very 4th flight, that's going to be on takeoffs and landings. So if it really gets into that situation, you should be able to get back onto your own frequency and say, hey, help, 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 my instructor's not doing well, I need to come in. And most people are gonna be like, all right, move everybody out of the way, let's get this person in, they're having an emergency. Another thing, I want you guys ready to write this down. There is a frequency known as guard frequency, 121.5. 121.5. Now, what's great about this frequency is kind of like an emergency frequency almost, right? 121.5 is monitored by, it's supposed to be monitored first off by the guard. It's also monitored by airliners as they're flying around. So if you have a major airliner that's like flying overhead, most likely they're going to be listening to 121.5. So if you start having an emergency, there's usually someone there that you can contact, someone you can ask for help from. Davis.
Yeah, that risk management handbook, I don't think we got that in our packet, did we? Is that something you recommend just buying on Amazon or somewhere?
It's free on the FAA website if you want to read it.
Perfect. Do you recommend reading it?
I didn't, but like it's cool if you do. That's freaking awesome.
Okay.
Isaiah.
The frequency was monitored by who again? I'm sorry.
So it's monitored by guard, right? And it's also monitored by major airliners as they fly around. They're one of the frequencies they have in the background is 121.5.
Thank you.
Meow. Yes, that too. All right. Yeah. All right. You guys have been doing very well. I'm going to give you guys another break. I will see you guys 55 minutes past the hour. How we all doing? Good, good. It hasn't been a hard day so far. We just talked about some hazardous attitudes, things like that. Simple stuff. We like. Alrighty.
Quick question. Does meowing fall under any of the hazardous attitudes?
I mean, I feel like you can fall under anti-authority. I'm gonna meow as much as I want, mister, kind of thing. But when you're out there on a practice frequency, very common. Oh my gosh, a kitty! Very cute. Alrighty, the very last slide deck of the day. Nelia.
Sorry, I have a question. What did the SOP stand for the personal SOPs?
So standard operating procedure. So let me give an example for that. Every time that you can like decide, every time I'm going to do a day trip, like go somewhere and come back, not just go out and fly around and land at the exact same airport, but I'm going to go to a different airport. Maybe your standard operating procedure is every time I go to a different airport, I'm going to make sure in my bag I have at least a new pair of socks, a new pair of underwear, some deodorant, and a toothbrush, right? Like the bare minimums, just in case. Things like that, your own personal standard operating procedure. When you go to your company, they're going to have their own standard operating procedure. Like, for example, maybe the pilots aren't allowed to leave until the last guest has deplaned the aircraft. Some airlines have to do that, some don't. It depends on the company's standard operating procedure. True.
Is this slide the airworthy requirements like the AD's 100-hour and annual inspection stuff?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I was just making sure to put it in my notes right.
All right. Just kind of ruined the surprise for everyone, but okay. Alrighty. So airworthiness is a very big topic. So they have kind of split it up into two separate slide decks. And so this is just slide deck 1. All right, just the basics of it. Okay, we are going to be going through a few different regs that you guys should at least write down. All right, thanks for the number and what they're pertaining to. And we're also going to be going through a few different acronyms that you will need to have memorized by your check ride. Okay, so let's see. Let's go back one. So these are some resources that you guys can use. We're going to be going over about the airworthiness checklist. This is a piece of paper that you guys need to fill out before every single flight that you go on here at ATP, the airworthiness checklist, a copy of which can be found inside your ATP library on your extranet. Additionally, when you go to your training centers, there's going to be like big stacks of them placed somewhere in your training center. So if you get there early enough, you can just rip one off, fill it out, and be good to go for your flight that day. We'll be going over a few of the regs in the FAR AIM today. And I want to just go ahead and give you guys this document. It doesn't tell us to, but it just seems like I should. So that went to everyone. Now, this is going to give you a basic breakdown of what a maintenance binder looks like, okay? So when you guys are going through your own maintenance binders, you can actually refer back to this document and be like, all right, what the heck is this talking about? This will show you what it's talking about, all right? So keep this document. All right, so this is a cutout of your ACS. That ACS, remember we talked about that yesterday. That's your Airman Certification Standards, the stuff that will be covered on your check ride. So we know that in task for the pre-flight preparation, task B, it talks about airworthiness requirements. It's talking specifically about, this is in reference to your FAR AIM, Part 39, Airworthiness Directives. It's going over Part 43, Write it down. Maintenance, preventative maintenance. It's also going over the rules of this in part 91, the general operating and flight rules. Got it? Got it? Everyone writing it? I love it. Cool. It's also covering areas found in the PHAC. Remember, the PHAC is written by the FAA. So this is one of the documents that you can refer to, even during the check ride. That's right, people. You're allowed to have your PHAC with you in the check ride. So if you have read these sections, highlighted the important parts, if you get to your oral of your check ride and you get a little messed up, a little confused, you can say, hold on, I have this tabbed out in my PHAC, and you can show them, all right, this is what the information says. Specifically, this version of the PHAC. All right, so the first, Charles.
Are we allowed to have the FARM as well, or only the PHAC?
You're allowed to have the FARM as well on your check ride.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. So this first reg that we're going to talk about is 91.3. Write it down. 91.3. All right. Now, I kind of teach my students about 91.3, and I tell them that it's like a two-sided coin. All right. There's a good part and there's a bad part. All right. So 91.3 states that the pilot in command of an aircraft, the PIC, is directly responsible for and is the final authority as to the operation of that aircraft. That is a lofty sentence right there. If you say you are PAC, it's letting you know that you are responsible for the final authority and the operation of that aircraft. So if anything goes wrong, they're going to go to you, the PIC, first. Okay? That's the uh-oh side of the coin. All right? Yay, it gives you authority, but that authority comes at a cost. That's side one. Now I want to go to side two of that coin. In 91.3 Bravo, it says, in any in-flight emergency requiring immediate action, the pilot in command may deviate from any rule of this part to the extent required to meet that emergency. What does that mean? That means, as PIC, if you experience a real life emergency, this means you're allowed to deviate from any rule given by the FAA. Let's say one of the rules is that you cannot go into Bravo airspace unless you have been cleared into it. You're allowed to say, screw you, I'm in the middle of an emergency. I need to go in here to be safe. I need to land this aircraft, and this is the closest airport. So you're allowed to deviate from any rule in order to meet the emergency as PIC. Now, let's also put the caveat in there that once you land, you better be prepared to fill out a bucket of paperwork. But as long as you only went as far as that emergency, like the safety to meet that emergency, they cannot come after you because you as PIC were being safe in an emergency. Any questions about that? Lauren.
Have you ever had to exercise that in your training?
I've had a few in-flight emergencies, but I have never had to actually break an actual rule yet. It does happen, but I've never had that happen to me. Talia, did you have your hand up?
I did, but you answered it.
Cool. All right. So, all right. Next rule. 91.7. Write it down. 91.7. All right. All 91.7 says is, the part that actually matters to you. No person may operate a civil aircraft unless it is in airworthy condition. All right? No person may operate a civil aircraft unless it is in airworthy condition. So, an aircraft may not be flown unless it's found to be airworthy. This is the actual reg that states it. Okay? Now, it is the PIC's responsibility to determine if a plane is in airworthy condition. That is part of your job. This is what, because 91.7 continued, it says, the PIC and 91.3 named you as PIC and made you responsible. It says the pilot in command of a civil aircraft is responsible for determining whether that aircraft is in condition for safe flight. So 91.3 gave you the authority. But it says 91.7, as PIC, you need to make sure that this aircraft is safe and is airworthy for flight. Talia.
Let's say you get into a situation where you say it's safe, but your student says doesn't agree. Like, what happens there? Even though you're the PIC, but like, what if your student is very persistent about what's going on?
So if it is before the flight, if a student straight up says, I do not feel safe, I do not want to go on this flight, done. Absolutely. If my student does not feel safe, we're not doing it. Now, if we're in flight and something starts going awry and I'm trying to be safe, but the student who's like a student pilot says, hey, I don't know, I don't think that's right. I will do my best to consider what they're saying, and we'll make I will consider and try to mitigate as much risk as I can. At the end of the day, as the instructor on that flight, I am the PIC, and I will make this the safest decision I can. Charles, you have your mic off. What's up? Talia, your hand? Oh, cool. All right, so anyone have a question on 91.7? No? All right. Next. The pilot may, in command, shall discontinue the flight when unairworthy mechanical, electrical, structural conditions occur, right? Same type of thing, continuing in 91.7. You're a PIC, you're responsible for making sure the aircraft is in airworthy condition, whether it be mechanical, electrical, structural conditions, right? That is your job. So, there are two elements of airworthiness. So, two conditions need to be met for an aircraft to be considered airworthy. First, an aircraft with a type certificate or a TC, a type certificate, is airworthy when it conforms to its US type certificate and is in condition for safe operation. So your type certificate is think of it as a full list of your aircraft and all of its components, right? If you are conforming to that list and nothing has changed and it's still safe to fly, you should be good to go. All right? Now, when it's talking about conditions for safe operation, we're talking more about safety versus legality. All right? Is it legal versus is it safe? So you might be legal to fly a plane without a certain type of instrument on it, but is it safe to do so? As PIC, it's up to you to actually make that call. Okay, Manuel.
During during the phase of private training, do we still have to abide by MELs? Since you already mentioned the condition of safe operations.
Well, we do not have MELs here at ATP.
Okay.
Lauren.
Can you offer some examples of like the kind of types that are within the certificates?
So yeah, do you have, no, let's see if I can look it up. Resources. Library. Search. Almost there, small airplanes. How about November 409? Oh, November 409 Alpha. Or, oops, how about C1E? Do you have your flight? Yeah, Lauren.
I don't know.
That's okay. That's okay. You would know if you had flight. So when you have your flight in your ATP documents tab, you can actually find the type certificate for your aircraft in there. All right, it'll give you the full list of all the parts of your aircraft.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Talia.
You said that's in flight, right?
Yeah. How do we know when the aircraft conforms to its type certificate and is in safe condition for flight? Well, to determine if it conforms to your type certificate or type design, you must confirm that, first of all maintenance, preventative maintenance, and alterations were completed in compliance with all the applicable regs, right? We talked about part 43 and part 91. You make sure all maintenance has been completed within those rules and regulations. You confirm this by ensuring all of your inspections and maintenance have been properly documented in the maintenance records. This is going to deal more with like the legal side of airworthiness, making sure all your maintenance has been recorded, all of your inspections have been completed and have been signed off on. Now, to determine if it's safe for operation, you need to complete a thorough pre-flight inspection in accordance with the type of flight you are doing. This deals with more of the safety side of airworthiness. So there's two different airworthiness requirements, but they are equally necessary and they go hand in hand. Both are going to have something to do with legality and safety. You cannot complete one airworthy requirement and not the other. If both requirements are not fulfilled, the airplane is good as broken. You need to make sure it's both safe and, yes, Blake, 91205 is a very big one. You're both safe and all your maintenance has been completed. All right, 91203, write it down. 91203, we're talking about required certificates. All right, so what's it say here? No person may operate a civil aircraft unless it has within it an appropriate and current airworthiness certificate and a U.S. registration certificate. That's what it says in 91203. You need to have your airworthiness certificate and registration certificate inside the aircraft, within it. Now, there are lots of different documents that are required to be inside your aircraft, but only 2 of them are certificates. That is the airworthiness certificate and your registration. So, what are airworthiness and registration certificates? Well, airworthiness certificate and location. So FAA issues to all aircraft meeting the airworthy requirements. If they deem your aircraft as airworthy, you will get an airworthiness certificate. No person may operate a civil aircraft unless the airworthiness certificate is displayed at the cabin or cockpit entrance so that it is legible to passengers or crew. That's a big part, right? Not only need to have a airworthiness certificate, but it needs to be presented or like up somewhere, displayed at the cabin or cockpit entrance so that is legible to passengers or crew. That's for the airworthiness certificate. Now, the registration certificate. Before an aircraft can be flown legally, it must be registered with the FAA. They make a lot of money that way. Before an aircraft can be flown legally, it must be registered with the FAA. Notice how it does not actually say the registration has to be posted. It needs to be within the aircraft, but does not have to be legally posted for everyone to see. That was written under the airworthiness certificate. The registration does not say that. All right, so getting to our next acronym. These are all the required placards on board, all documents and placards that need to be on board prior to flight. All right, we already covered the first two, airworthiness and registration. Now we're going to add the next bit of it, the radio station license, the operator's handbook, also known as your POH, the pilot operating handbook, your weight and balance, the external data plate, as well as the compass deviation card. So some people say Aero EC, I like to call it Aeroed, and I use the D from deviation, Aeroed. So, as you can see here, this is one of the first things that you're going to complete on your airworthiness checklist, right? This exact same acronym. We use this handy mnemonic device to remember the required documents, Aeroed or Aero EC, which stands for all of these. Now, the radio station license that you see right here, this is only for international flights. So is the license in regards to an aircraft or to pilots? It's to both. However, what does that mean? That means you need to have your own radio operator license, and so does your aircraft. Okay, both need to have a radio license to get international. So do all international flying pilots have one on their person, just like their ATP cert? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. You carry it around with you. So, a lot of people say, doesn't the POH include the weight and balance in it? Yes, it does. Remember I gave out that acronym yesterday, Glenn P. WAS, which included weight and balance in there? Well, why does this list still include the weight and balance? Well, the POH may not have the current data, which is the data updating the aircraft's new weight and moment after any changes of you putting people in it. So just think of the weight and balance is that important that it's mentioned twice, all right? So the weight and balance is specifically referring to in here is the one that's inside the POH, okay? But if you have any new data that may have changed this, such as you made an alteration to your aircraft, that weight and balance must also be on board. External data plate. Would Sparrow work as well? I've heard people bring up Sparrow. I never had to learn it that way, but yo, if it works, it works. Go for it, sweetie. Have fun with it. So, the external data plate. That is this right here. It's a metal plate on the outside of your aircraft. Why do we want this? Who can tell me? Why is this important? The answer's dark. Manuel.
Is it like the VIN number, but for the aircraft?
Yeah, I mean, kind of. Yeah.
Identifies the aircraft if you crash.
There we go. That's the dark answer we were looking for. If you have a big dark crash and all the documents inside and you burn up, that external data plate is metal, so it most likely won't burn up. So they can find that and find out what plane it is. Now, the last one is the compass deviation card. Now, we're not going to go too far into it because that's a whole nother lesson for another day. But you have a magnetic compass in your plane, right? Great. However, the magnetic compass is based off of magnetic fields. That's how the compass finds its way. So, if you have a whole bunch of electrical equipment in your aircraft, which we do, which is avionics and radios and things like that, that can actually throw off your compass. So what you have in your plane, if you have a magnetic compass, is a compass deviation card. This shows how much those avionics are going to throw off your compass, right? So let me find a picture of one. Back, I say, back. All right. Bring over the window. All right, you see this right here? This is an example of a compass deviation card. So it's saying here, like for a heading of south, which is heading 180, right? South 180. You're actually going to steer 181. You're going to have your compass actually steer 181. Because those electrical fields created in your aircraft are slightly throwing off your compass. So it's letting you know, but if you're trying to fly heading 180, actually fly heading 181. If you're trying to fly heading 210, make your compass actually show 214 because it's just a little bit off. That's what your compass deviation card does because those magnetic fields in your aircraft are throwing off the compass. Does that make sense? Lauren.
Does that vary by individual plane or by aircraft type?
By every single plane. They have each their own deviation cards. Kyle, are those data placed in the same spot on both planes or the plane we will be using for training? Again, I trained in the Archer, so I can tell you the Archer one's correct, and I think the Cessna's one's correct, but I don't want to throw you off. But I know for sure the Archer is. All right, stay up by then. All right, so now we're gonna start getting into the required inspections. Woo! Yes, let's go there. So, required inspections. We just did all the required documents. Now we're doing required inspections. So, we have the acronym AVIATE. We're going to start with the annual inspection, right? It needs to be completed every 12 calendar months, not 1 year, not 12 months, 12 calendar months. Don't screw up the wording here. 12 calendar months. Then VOR, if you're doing an IFR flight, you're doing an instrument-based flight. It needs to be completed every 30 days. Okay? Your 100-hour inspection. These inspections are only required if your aircraft is used for flight training or if your aircraft is for hire. We also have the altimeter static encoder, which is also done for instrument flights, which must be completed every 24 calendar months. We have our transponder, or our mode C, which needs to be completed every 24 calendar months. We have our ELT, emergency locator transmitter. Emergency locator transmitter for ELT. That needs to be completed every 12 calendar months. It also must be inspected, or probably just replaced, probably, if you have used 50% of your battery life. How do you know you've used 50% of your battery life? Well, about 50% will be gone if you have 1 hour of cumulative use. 1 hour of cumulative use. So if your standard operating procedure says that before every flight, you need to make sure your ELT is operational, well, within the first 5 minutes or the top of the hour, you are legally able to test your ELT. Turn it on and see if it's functioning. That is the first 5 minutes of every hour. Okay? So if you do that for 5 minutes every single day, oh, that would be a lot. That means that when you actually did enough 5 minutes in a row to get to 1 hour, you'd have to have your ELT inspected or most likely just replaced. All right, lastly, your ADs. Kong Pang, what's up?
What's ELT stand for?
Emergency locator transmitter.
Oh, thanks.
Yep. Caitlin.
You have to document every time you use it so that the next person that uses it or the plane knows that you used it for like a minute or two.
I'm not sure that there's a reg that actually specifies that, but for anyone that actually does this, yes, I know they operate that way. I can't say for sure if there's an actual reg that says you need to record it, but I know everyone that does do this does record it.
Okay.
Garrett, you had a question?
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of my question too. I was just wondering, how would we know if someone else had used it for half an hour or so?
Yeah. Everyone I know that does this, they actually do record it. I've never seen a reg that says it, but I wouldn't be. How often do we check ELTs? Either every 12 calendar months, or when you use 50% of the battery life, which is accomplished after 1 hour of cumulative use. All right, then you must comply with any inspections that are required by your ADs. Now, ADs stand for airworthiness directives. Airworthiness directives. All right. These can tell you that you need to have an inspection every so often, so you need to be able to follow those. Now, to kind of help with the acronym, a lot of people put this first A at the very beginning, calling it like Aviate. That's how most people try to remember it. Aviate. So another reg, 43.5. All right, what does 43.5 say? It says no person may approve for return to service an aircraft, airframe, aircraft engine, propeller, or appliance that has undergone maintenance, preventative maintenance, rebuilding, or alteration unless the maintenance record entry has been made. What does this mean? This means that anything that goes on with your plane that's considered maintenance needs to be recorded. That's what 43.5 says. Anything that's maintenance-wise that goes along with your plane must be put in the maintenance log. That's what 43.5 says. Alrighty, now we're doing 43.11, 4311. What does this say? This is showing what you do need to put in that maintenance log. So the first reg that said you need to actually record all this, this is the one that says what you need to record. The person approving or disapproving for return to service shall make an entry in the maintenance record of that equipment containing the following information. What type of inspection and a brief description of that inspection. the date the inspection happened, and the aircraft total time when it came to service. The signature, certificate number, and kind of certificate held by person approving or disapproving, right? Who are you? Who signed this? What's your cert number? And what cert are you holding? And then finally, whether or not the aircraft is found to be airworthy and approved or disapproved for return to service. All this information needs to be included every time there's an inspection. Annie Smith.
Does that log of the maintenance stay in the aircraft or in whatever office of whatever hangar it's at?
So there's no actual law saying that you need to have your maintenance log on board. However, here at ATP, we do keep it in the planes. That just makes it easier for us.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So this annual right here, this is just an example, all right? So this is saying, this is like one of our entries that we've done into our maintenance binder. There, bigger. So you can see here, performed an annual inspection on this aircraft, right? It's saying here that an annual inspection was completed. You can even see here, I certify this aircraft has been inspected in accordance with annual inspection and was found to be in airworthy condition at this time. In here, you can see that they put in there what was done. They're putting in there their signature. They're putting in there their cert number. They say here what kind of cert is it? Is it their cert is for an A&P. You can also see what the aircraft total time was at the time, right? They have put in here all that information we just talked about. Now, you notice that both the ELT and the annual have an inspection every 12 calendar months. Every 12 calendar months, they both have to be inspected. So they usually are just going to combine them. If they have the same time limit, might as well do it at the exact same time and just get them both over with. So many times this page is not going to include just one item. For example, if you're seeing an annual, it's very likely they did the ELT at the same time. Now, one thing you can see here is that a student for her check ride tried to highlight all these different things, okay? I love the idea. I love that this person was trying to be really cool and highlight everything for their DPE. Don't do this. Don't do this. This is going to confuse everybody else after this check ride is done, because there's going to be other pages that are after this. So all you guys should be doing for your check rides is tabbing out the important pages. Well, if you have those important pages tabbed out in your maintenance binder for your check ride, they'll just open it up and find it themselves. So all you need to do is tab it out. Do not highlight in these maintenance binders. Now, in our maintenance binder, we have a whole little special sheet for the VOR equipment check log, right? We know that for IFR flight, your VORs need to be checked every 30 days. Well, this is usually going to be found in the front of your maintenance binder. However, here at ATP, we are currently in the process of trying to transfer over to an electronic VOR log. However, right now we're still right in the middle. So when you guys are going through like the airworthiness of your aircraft, you can find online when the last VOR check was done. However, it must also still be placed on this paper log that's in the maintenance binder. Right now we're right in the middle, so we're doing both. We have electronic and the paper one, okay? Right now we're doing both. Now, when it comes to the 100 hour, there are going to be plenty of 100 hours inspections that are logged in your maintenance binder. We are a training school. These aircrafts are flown all day, every day. So we get through those 100 hours pretty darn quickly. So it's very important that you find the last or the most recent 100 hour inspection, especially when you're filling out your airworthiness sheet. You'll know it's a 100 hour because it literally says the word 100 hour inspection, okay? Now, you can see here, we have, just like before, the type of inspection that was done, right? Using the applicable Cessna Service Manual Inspection Guide. Cool, awesome. I certified this airframe has been inspected in accordance with the Cessna blah, 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 100 hour inspection, and was found to be in airworthy condition at this time. They finished another one of the requirements. They have the name, they have the signature, we needed that. We also have what type of certification it is, as well as their license number. We have the date it was done and the total aircraft time. That's literally everything that was put into that 43.11. Everything that needs to be listed in this small little area, they completed all of it. Now, this next page is pretty much out of date, so I don't like to show it anymore. Your altimeter and your transponder inspections, they're going to be completed on a page just like this. Just like this. The altimeter and transponder be put in pages just like these. So that's all you need to know about that. It'll just say altimeter inspection and transponder inspection. All right. That's all we're covering for airworthiness today. That I said that's just part 1. Okay. Hit me with your best shot. I'm ready. Questions? Caitlin.
When a logbook is filled up, will a plane have multiple logbooks or maintenance?
I mean,
books?
I've seen some pretty large maintenance binders out there. I've never seen one that was like part 2. But so far, I've only seen one maintenance binder myself. That's
And
all
that goes from the start of the time the plane was operating up until current?
Yeah. I mean, I see what you're saying. I just personally never seen it.
Okay, thank you.
Talia.
I know you said it's outdated, but do we still need to like actually know it or no?
Yeah, it just doesn't look like this anymore. When you actually go to the page, it's going to be written just like these paragraphs we see here. It might have some of this at the very end, but all you need to know is that you're looking for the altimeter, static encoder, and transponder inspections. Exact same thing.
Okay.
Somebody else hit me. Somebody come get her. Nope, not that song. Let's see. Annie.
If you suspect that something could possibly be wrong with it, while you're flying, could you reference and see when the last time, or like, should you reference and see the last time that that thing was worked on?
While you're flying?
No.
After
On the
you're
ground.
flying, if something went wrong, you'd be like, hey, well, when was this the last time it was inspected? Yeah, that's something you would do. All right, we're not allowed to go yet, so death wheel. The wheel of death. Who shall ask me a question? Student number 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Kyle! Kyle! Ask me a question.
Is there a reason why you don't have to like show or display the registration Like, I remember you saying that like the airworthiness certificate has to be displayed. Is there a reason why you don't display the registration as well?
Because the FAA didn't deem it
They don't
necessary.
require it? Okay.
Yeah, that's the best answer I can give you. That's the one thing they didn't say you didn't put up. They just need to
Okay.
have it.
Yeah.
Staying silent. I need the blood of the innocent. Give me more. Ooh, right at the very end. Joshua, have you the question?
So who's allowed to conduct these inspections? Are
So-
pilots or no?
There is a list of things that you as a private pilot, not a student pilot, a private pilot are able to complete for maintenance. That's going to be found in Appendix A of Part 43. Appendix A of Part 43 lists all preventative maintenance that you can complete as a private pilot. Now, when it comes to the 100 hour, that can be completed by an aviation mechanic. They're known as A&Ps. Now, when it comes to the annual inspection needs to be completed by someone known as an IA, inspector authorized. The annual must be completed by an IA, inspector authorized. While the 100 hour can be done by A&P. Garrett.
Are student pilots allowed to do preventative maintenance?
No, only private pilots and above. Joshua, great question. Annie.
Will we ever get the chance in our, like as a student, to see our instructor complete any maintenance?
The most maintenance you're probably going to see an instructor do is fill up the oil.
Okay.
What's the highest level of maintenance you've done? Well, Corey, lovely question. So I am definitely a Wreck-It Ralph, not a Build-It Bob whatsoever. So the most I've ever done is fill up the oil. But other things that you can do as a private pilot that is listed in Appendix A of Part 43, you can change a light bulb, you can change a tire, there's something to do with hydraulics that you can do. There's a whole list of things you are allowed to do as a private pilot. I just don't do those because I will break it.
So
Annie,
we're not allowed. We're not
go ahead,
allowed
Jacob.
to. We're not allowed to fill oil as student pilots.
No.
Okay.
Annie.
Is there any part of our instruction in which we'll be able to see like a brief walkthrough of how to do those things, just in case you're interested in learning it?
So if you are in a maintenance location, some of the maintenance guys will let you come over and they'll actually show you different parts of the engine and things like that. I was not part of a maintenance center when I was a student, so I had to go off of any videos I could find on the ATP library. Quiet again. Davis.
Yeah, I was just going back up at the top. So we covered a lot of part 33 or part 43 and part 91, but can you talk a little bit about part 39 again? The airworthiness
Yeah.
directives?
So 93 just talks about those airworthiness directives. This talks about how that they are mandatory, they need to be complied with, how there's different kinds. There is, and we'll go over this later, but there is such thing as an emergency AD where you have to complete it right now before you take another flight. There's a regular AD where it comes in and it'll say like, hey, before you hit this many hours in this aircraft, this inspection needs to be done. There can also be an AD that is recurring. And that recurring AD will like say, hey, every 1,000 hours, you need to complete this. So I'll just talk more about ADs in part 39.
Awesome, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Lauren.
So we've gone over quite a few acronyms. I'm just wondering if they're all industry standard or if they're specific to like either you or ATP.
So kind of like that one person asked, I can't remember who it was. We mostly use Aviate. No, we use, which one was it on? I don't know. There are different acronyms for it, but the ones that we went over today are pretty much standard. All right, they're pretty much standard. Everyone will know what you're talking about. Benjamin Trainer.
A little bit off topic, but you mentioned earlier that you had a number of emergencies while you were flying. I was just kind of curious of like kind of what was your worst one and how did you deal with it? If you don't mind sharing.
My very worst one was when I was coming in for a landing and my engine died before we got to the ground.
Oof, that's not good.
I almost pooped my pants. But I was the instructor. My student was still pretty much brand new. My engine died while we were still in, and I followed my training. I used my checklist that I know, which is A, pitch for my best airspeed, find the best place to land. I was already facing a runway, so I just had to float all the way down there. I used my checklist as best as I could, but I was already pretty close to the ground, so I kind of only did what I had to do. I declared by telling the tower, hey, this is what's going on. And then the last bit of that checklist I have memorized is to turn on my ELT. They were already following me and I was busy. So I should have turned it on, but I didn't. But one of the biggest things they say if you have no energy left and you're coming down to a runway is when you touch down, use whatever energy you have left to get yourself off the runway. So like if there's a plane coming behind you. I didn't really follow that. I put that plane down and I just needed everything to stop. So I just slammed on those brakes and I was like, I'm done. So that was that. But yeah, that was the worst emergency I had. No muss, no fuss. And then I literally had to pull the airplane off the runway.
That's crazy.
Oh yeah. Nicole.
So is that ELT, is it built in or is it always on? Like you have to switch it on and switch it off?
So for example, in the Archer, there's like a little panel in like the tail of your aircraft that if you were to undo it, which I've never heard of another person at HB doing this, they can take it off and they can take out the ELT. But yes, you flick it on and you flick it off from the flight deck.
So it's not always in the arm position?
I mean, let's say when you turn on your aircraft, it would be in the arm position, but you can actually activate it or turn it off by yourself.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Yep. Jeremiah.
Back to your like emergency thing. Was it determined what caused it? Was that user error or what was that plane error?
No, at that, not gonna go too much into detail, but it was a plane error, something to do with our magnetos. Nicole.
I guess going back to my ELT question. So like say you landed in a location where they might not be able to find you, couldn't necessarily take the ELT with you like you can on one of the bigger jets.
I'm gonna say a no to that because you'd have to like take off. I mean, like I guess you could, but you'd be taking off a whole bunch of panels and stuff. At that point, just get to safety is what I say. Vincent.
Yeah, you mentioned you had an interview with Spirit. Is that where you want to go, or do you still not know yet?
I think it's where I want to go. I have 8 years of seniority underneath my belt. So if I get to start a Spirit, I get to start with 1 month vacation every single year right off the bat. I don't ever call out sick, so all those sick hours come with me. Everything just transfers over. So I want to go to Spirit if I can. Caitlin.
In Elevate, are we going to cover like paperwork that we're going to fill out after an emergency, or is that in training?
That's more in training, I would say.
And what was the paperwork process like when you went through your emergencies? Did it take long or was it pretty fast?
The actual, I had to take a couple phone calls. That was no big deal. but the actual paperwork itself, for that type of emergency, since no one got hurt and I just pulled the aircraft off the runway, less than an hour, fill it out.
Are there some students or any emergencies that would happen and then they're processing that for weeks?
I mean, when you're saying it's processing for weeks, it might take a while for the FAA to get back to you, because they are very slow. But it's usually not too bad. Especially if like nothing really went wrong, you'll be fine. I haven't met any students that went through something catastrophic and they hurt somebody else or somebody else's property. Daniel.
So you said you already have seniority under your belt for Spirit?
Not pilot seniority, company seniority.
Oh, okay. I was confused for a second, but gotcha.
Yeah. Chris.
What would you say was the hardest part of all your training that you did at ATP?
CFI.
CFI? Okay.
Yep, hands down. Gotcha. Davis.
Yeah, so there's like the estimated cost for the whole program. A lot of us took out the loans, but do most people get through with that estimated cost, or are there typically like added expenses that pop up? Like if you failed a test or just weird stuff?
I mean, failing a test is a really big reason why you would have to pay more, like either a written exam or a check ride. Beyond that, I think the biggest fee, and again, this is not ATP talking, this is Sam talking, is if you have delays in the program. So all that extra money that you took out for like to survive those 7 months, if it lasts more than 7 months, you're expending more than they're giving you at that point.
Sure.
Annie.
I just forgot my question.
Cool. Talia.
If you're paying outright, how much would the whole program be? Or would you say?
That is not a me question. When I went at the program, I believe it was $92,000. And we were technically paying out of pocket because we didn't go through a loan system. I'm very blessed, and my parents put me on the deed to their house, and we took out a house mortgage, so we have the interest rate of 4.4%. So that's what it was when I was in the program. I couldn't tell you what it is now.
So, because I am doing it outright. So what other fees would you say there are besides tuition?
Besides tuition, you already know about knowledge tests, you already know about check rides. You're gonna have to be purchasing different sectionals, like different maps. You might need to get updated books, like your new chart supplements and things like that. Let's see, what other surprise fees? For example, if you need to get a new headset and things like that, it's generally what they say it is. There's only more if you fail something or for more books. Jacob.
I know you briefly mentioned your experience earlier with the cadet programs, but since we have more time and you're not letting us leave, could you go into more detail about, like, I know you're working with Spirit, but you had mentioned, you know, some people who did Frontier. I'm sure you know people who did other. So could you just go through like the process of, you know, getting in touch with them? Does ATB help you with that? Are they all just interviews? What's the competitiveness for those programs?
So when it comes to the direct programs that we have at ATP, when I recently went to career services, they brought up Spirit, they brought up Frontier, they brought up Breeze, and they brought up Avelo. Now with those 4 programs, career services here at ATP really refined my resume to make it look like a professional aviation resume, which in itself, great service. I submitted my resume directly to the company. Then career services emailed the ATP rep at the company to directly pull that resume out. So you would be at the next interview. I know that a lot of people here are trying to go into those programs. But the fact that compared to other schools or people that are just walking off the street, ours is pulled directly and presented as an ATP resume does not hurt one bit. Cool? Annie.
I remembered it. So for like later on in the program, I have read that it says that we go out of town or cross country trips for time periods. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that time is known as crew. It's where you're really trying to build up your cross-country PIC time. And it really depends on what area you're in. For example, when I went on crew, I was based out of Fort Lauderdale, but I ended up flying in Illinois, Indiana, Atlanta, Tennessee, Minnesota. I went all over the place. And I was kind of just moving aircrafts around for ATP. And that was all that was doing was building up my PIC cross country time so I would be eligible for the commercial check ride.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yep. Nicole.
So I see like you can apply to a bunch of the different cadet programs. Can you explain what those cadet programs kind of are? Like, would you complete all of your certifications with ATP, or would you have to move on to their cadet program and do it with the company that took you on?
So the cadet programs that I personally know about, you still stay with ATP to finish your hours, your 1,500 hours. There are some programs out there that offer you a stipend after you apply to them. Like, I think it was SkyWest at one point was offering $17,000 that as you completed your training or completed your hours, they'd be sending you like portions of it monthly. But you would still be staying at ATP to finish your 1,500 hours.
So it's pretty much just like a pre-interview process?
Yeah, it's just to get your certified job offer. You have something in hand.
Okay. And you apply for each one at different periods, correct? Well,
So like Spirit needed between 500 and 1,000 hours. That's what they wanted. I know with Frontier, you can go a lot earlier than that. If you want to get into the Aviate program that goes to United, that one you can apply for that one as long as you're a private pilot, I believe.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yep. Compang.
Yeah, so I had a question in regards to the knowledge test. So one of my instructors told me that once I take the PAR exam, that he highly suggested that I should take the commercial, just because the two topics kind of intertwine a bit though too. So I was just trying to think about the best way to go about it then. Because I know that the structure that usually people say is just to go with the PAR and then the instrument and then do the commercial. So I just wanted to know what your opinions on that was.
So I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I personally like the idea of doing private then instrument then commercial. But even when I'm teaching my commercial students, I tell them that commercial is just private on freaking steroids. It is just a lot more intense. So is it a bad idea to do it in that order? Absolutely not. But I do suggest doing it in the order that is presented by ATP. It just makes things a little more smoother for you. So if you're trying to work ahead, like if you're trying to work ahead and you just want to get through the second test, then you're already through the second part of the program. So so it just makes more sense that way.
Okay. So would any of the information from the instrument fall within the commercial then? Is that why you would suggest to do it in that format, or?
No, I just like this format because let's say you only finish 2 of the tests. If you only finish 2, then you finish the first 2 that you're going into the program with, so you don't have to worry for the most amount of time.
Okay. All
Blake.
right, thanks.
Yep.
My understanding is that once you finish and you're ready to go, either airlines or private, you have to get rated on a specific jet. Do you guys do that specific jet class or course?
So there is an ATP course, I believe it's out of Dallas, where they do the ATP CTP course. It costs a bucket load of money. The secret is, though, most airlines are paying for it now if you just go through them. The commercial airlines are mostly paying for it now.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. Garrett.
What determines which plane we will be learning on?
What training center you're at.
Okay.
Annie.
So the training center that I'm going to has Cessna and Archer, and I also believe they have a couple jets, multi-engine jets as well. So if they have all three, or we'll start with Cessna and Archer. If they have both of them, then which one, like what would my pacing be, for example?
So if you are a training center that has multiple, you will stick to either the Archer or the Cessna based on which instructor you have.
Okay, cool.
You're not gonna be hopping back and forth. That'd be too confusing.
Okay.
Would you be studying both though, or no?
I mean, even when I was studying for the Archer, I would learn random things about the Cessna as I was going, just so for a more well-rounded education. But my focus was the Archer, so I know much more about that than I do the Cessna. Kind of like when we talk about different types of the aircraft. I already knew that both the Archer and the Cessna had the differential ailerons, but somewhere I'd also learned along the line that the Cessna also had freeze type ailerons. It's just something that you learn along the way.
So if they have both the Archer and the Cessna, it's based on what your instructor is teaching you, I guess.
As far as I know, it's not you should not be jumping back and forth. You should be in one.
Do your instructors hop back and forth from different airplanes, or are they kind of
It depends on what they have been indoctrinated with. For example, for the TAA aircrafts I fly, there's the Cessna 182 and the Cessna 172. I've only been indoctrinated in the 182, so I'm unable to teach in the 172 for ATP. Nicole.
That was my question.
Cool. All right, so I'm still gonna stick around. I'm gonna still let you guys ask questions, but we're about a half hour early right here. So if I ever go over, I better not hear jack from none of y'all, because I'm letting you out a half hour early. Are we understood? All right. That's my little angry face. There is the sign out link. I'm gonna leave up this page so we can take a look to make sure everyone's signing out. All right, people are signing out. Cool, cool, cool. Out, out, out. Vincent, sign out. Miles, sign out. Talia, sign out. Nelia, sign out. Talia, Miles, we're missing you. Good. Now just Miles. I believe in you, Miles. You can do it. Not working. Gosh. All right. See, when you communicate like that, I can sign you out. You guys have to communicate. All righty, cool, cool, cool. Everyone signed out. Love it. All right, you are free to go a half hour early, but I'll stick around if you have any questions. Atherton.
I had a question pertaining to what you were saying about what people were asking about, like different aircraft like training. But I had a restriction placed on my like account or whatever for missions where I can't fly in the Archer due to my height. And I wanted to know if that would like affect the pacing or like the availability for training with instructors.
Do you know what aircraft? I know not what aircraft. Do you know what training center you're going to?
Yeah.
Do you know what they fly?
I think it's mostly Cessna, but they do have a lot of Archers. So.
All right. I mean, then they'll only put you in the Cessna. Should be no big deal.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Caitlin.
You mentioned that to be a CFI at ATP, you can't have more than 3 failed check rides. But what do you need to start failing, and like how many things you start failing until they actually just kick you out of ATP?
That's going to be more like a case-to-case basis. I've heard of students that busted like 5 times before they were finally booted. I've also heard of students that busted the same check ride 3 times in a row and they said no mas. So it's very situational based, how much effort you're putting into the program.
my seat.
Atherton, what's up?
I still have
Garrett,
my hand up, sorry.
Is there a specific knee board that you recommend buying?
So there is one that literally everyone has. It is this one with the metal plate. People really like it because it has a whole bunch of information on it at the exact same time. People seem to really like this one, so I do recommend it. No way. Nicole.
So this is a personal question. You don't have to answer it. I was just wondering how you balance flight attendant life while attending ATP and getting all of your certifications.
So back when I'm still a flight attendant, but right now I'm on voluntary time off, which they started offering, so that made it very easy. But during my actual time as a student, they weren't offering that. And I still needed to pay for my health insurance and my union dues. So the way I was doing that is, turns out there were days that I was not going to fly. Like I would find out like at 5 a.m. By the way, the weather's horrible today. You're not flying. With Spirit, you're able to pick up from other flight attendants on the fly. So I would pick up a day turn, fly out, come back, and I would study while I was on the plane. I usually ended up flying about 2 turns a month.
Okay, cool. Yeah, y'all have good flexibility as well. Okay, thank you.
Quick question. Do they have any programs here for the private route? Private jets and things like that?
Programs here for like other than airliners?
Yeah, getting into like the commercial realm of things.
Yeah, so what they have, once you like become an instructor or you're just an alumni, they have what's known as the pilot pool.
Thank you.
So when you go to the pilot pool, they just have a whole bunch of lists of different people that currently have jobs. It's not necessarily just the airliners.
Pilot pool. Thank you.
Yep.
Is the design model checklist still useful? Because you didn't go over it, but it was in the view videos.
You know, I hate the 5 Ps. I usually just teach the decide model, but the 5 Ps was on the slide, so that's what I taught. But I would teach my personal students the decide model.
What about the 3P model?
The 3P model?
Yeah, it was perceive, process, and perform. It was on the videos too.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I don't teach it.
Okay, so the 5. Oh, well, you said the decide would be better than the 5P.
I like the decide model, but they wanted me to teach the 5 Ps. That's what I did.
Okay.
Do you think the Spirit merger is going to go through and you're going to end up working for JetBlue?
I'm pretty sure I will be. Yeah. Whatever. JetBlue goes to Europe now, so I'll be fine with that.
Do you think the Hawaiian and Alaska merger will go through?
I have heard so many rumors about that from different flight attendants. Some saying it's definitely going through, some saying it's only for show. So I'm on the fence on that one because I'm hearing too many rumors about it.
Yeah, I think another airline might move in on Hawaii.
Yup. Talia.
If you want to do something different besides commercial, how would you go about that?
Like you want to work in the private sector?
Private, military.
So if you get enough of your certs, you can apply to the military and they will accept these certs, which is absolutely amazing. I know that one girl that used to be a flight attendant with Spirit, after she got her commercial certification, she created her own company called Wings Over Miami. And what she would do is she would do sightseeing tours over the city of Miami. And she made quite a bit of money off of doing it. So much so that I don't think she ever applied to Spirit like she planned to do. Nicole.
Are there other like jobs that you would suggest besides being an instructor, like right out of ATP?
So they talk about a lot of like banner towing. They talk about flying over pipelines and just like aerial surveys of them. A lot of people talk about them, but from what I've heard, those positions are actually pretty hard to get. You have to know somebody. Like getting low time hour jobs, you got to know somebody to get it usually. So I like the fact with ATP, as soon as I finished being a student, all I had to do was wait a month and bam, I was an instructor and I could start getting more hours.
Great. So those are low times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Banner towing and like aerial surveys are usually low time hour jobs.
You have any high time jobs besides instructing? Not just.
That's the where that pilot pool comes in. For example, if you want to do this Cessna 182 skydive pilot for iSkydive, you don't need your ATP, CTP, you need your commercial hours, your commercial certificate, you need 350 hours.
Okay,
Things
cool.
like that.
Come to Cape Air.
Cape Air?
Yeah, I work for Cape Air actually right now. I'm
Really?
gonna be
That's
on
cool.
LOA. Yeah. And then I'll actually be going back there after I finish the program, which is why I asked about deferral, because like I have an offer to fly as a first officer, and
Awesome.
that'll be at about 300 hours. So I'm not sure if it makes sense for me to do my instructor ratings, but I suppose that's like something I would talk to the training center about. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. But if you don't need it, save your money.
Specific question to you since you're a flight attendant. With the IACRA registration, there's an area that you can put your certification information. Can I put my flight attendant certification number, FAA certification number in there, or
Is your flight
do
attendant
I
cert not
disregard
already in there?
I'm apprehensive of putting it in there because my medical has my like first name, middle name, and last name. And then my airline, the FAA, they only did like my first name and last name. So I pop up as two different people on the like FAA registry. And also they got my date of birth wrong on my flight attendant certification thing, and I never ended up fixing that. So I didn't know if those would like mess
Oh,
each
honey,
other up. Yeah.
that is a lot of different words there.
Yeah. I'm like,
Yeah,
ugh.
so if nothing's not matching, definitely do not include it. How legal that is, I cannot tell you. But yeah, especially when it comes to medicals and your certs and everything, you
Yeah.
want to have everything match up all the time. I know
100%.
that, let's see if I type this in right. 993290. Yeah, like when I made my IACRA, my flight attendant one just popped up there. I didn't have to do nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. And also my company just, they didn't put my full like legal name. So I don't know why they did that. And then I never ended up flashing my, license when you go through KCM just because the date of birth was wrong. And I even tried to contact them and they said like, oh, you have to go to this place in person and show your birth certificate and all that. And it was just so much more of a
Yeah,
just,
this is not legal advice and not an opinion of ATP, but I'm telling you, bury it.
Okay. I'm gonna be a pilot from now on.
Mm.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? All right. If that's it, I will see you all tomorrow.